Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Stork Prints stand. Thank you so much for coming. The song you just heard, Twist and Shout by the Beatles, written in 1963, and that's the reason we chose this song, because 1963 was a very special year. It was the year that John F. Kennedy gave his Ich bin ein Berliner speech in Berlin. It was the year the compact cassette was introduced for the first time, for those of you old enough to remember compact cassettes. And in 1963 at the ITMA was Stork Prints introduced for the first time a rotary screen and a rotary screen printing machine. So we're celebrating 50 years of innovation at this year's Labelexpo. Now my name is Derek, and together with Oliver over there and Paul on the other DSI behind you, and my two beautiful assistants Georgie and Charlie, we're going to talk to you about the DSI, the award-winning DSI. Because the DSI embodies everything that's innovative and groundbreaking about Stork Prints' approach to inkjet printing. Now, the DSI gives extremely high quality and has many interesting features like versioning and barcode printing. And over the next 10 minutes or so, I'll explain these to you. We'll give you a demonstration of the DSI, and we'll show you what's already made it popular in North America, in Europe, in the Middle East, and in Australasia. But before I do that, a little background information. Because Stork Prints has been able to develop the DSI thanks to its long-standing expertise in digital printing. In fact, it was as far back as 1986 that it brought its first UV inkjet printer onto the market. And since then, it's built up over 25 years' experience in developing and producing proofing and printing systems. And currently, over 4,000 such systems are in use worldwide, all made by Stork Prints. And something else to bear in mind is that Stork Prints also has its own in-house ink production facilities. So you get a consistently high quality of ink, but it's also part of the Stork Prints total systems approach. So you don't just get the ink, but also the machines that the ink runs on, so you get a better match. And on top of that, well, Stork Prints manufactures some of the critical components that are used in the DSI. Time to take a look at the machine. Now, probably one of the first things you'll notice is it's designed like a conventional press. So as Charlie's going to point out over there, we have the unwind with the web guidance there. The substrate comes off, and it's pre-treated in two ways. First by a web cleaning device, and then by a corona treatment unit. Now after that, the substrate passes into what you can describe as the heart of the DSI, the digital printing platform. For it's here that the ink is applied, but also fixed in position using these inline UV LED pinning stations. And I'll come back to that later because they play an important role in determining the high quality of the end result. Now after that, the substrate gets its final curing. Thanks, Georgie, who'll open the door for us there. This is, takes place in combination with Stork Prints chill drum technology. So here we have a water-cooled chill drum. It keeps the temperature down below 30 degrees centigrade. And this means that you can work with, for example, with heat-sensitive substrates. Now, like I said earlier, the DSI is designed like a conventional press, and you can really see that here when it's used in combination with inline finishing. So here we have a semi-rotary flexo unit, and beyond that, semi-rotary die cutting, and then slitting. But if there's one word that you had to choose to sum up the appeal of the DSI, then that word would definitely be modularity. It's an extremely modular system in terms of its configuration, for example. So with inline finishing or standalone, we'll have a look over there later. But there are also two other things in particular that I'd like to highlight. The first is the number of print positions, and the second is the choice in the width that you can print at. So if we first take a look at the print positions, what you'll see here is there are a total of 10 print positions on the DSI. And how does that work? Well, the standard configuration is CMYK. So you'd have CMYK at the 4 print positions the girls are pointing out there. But the whole idea behind the DSI is you can build on this, you can expand, you can add extra print positions whenever you require. So for example, in the first position, you can add digital white. Now this digital white is Stork Prints. Digital white is extremely high quality. And in fact, one single application can give you that screen look opacity. In the second print position, you can add digital primer. There is already a fairly high degree of substrate flexibility with inkjet printing systems, but the DSI really takes that one step further. So by using this digital primer, you can work with virtually any kind of substrate, including, for example, machine-coated paper. And there are a couple of things I'd like to point out about this digital primer. The first is that the priming takes place inline in a single pass together with the printing, so it doesn't impact the process speed in any way. And the second thing is that you only prime the substrate where you're going to print, so you don't prime the entire substrate, but only where you're going to print. So it's a very economical way of priming your substrate. Now, another important consideration is the color gamut, so extending the amount of colors that you can print. And what you see in further print positions is orange and violet spot colors. Now, by adding these spot colors to the CMYK and with the use of the digital white, this allows you to achieve approximately 90% of the Pantone color book. And then there are still two print positions left. You can see they're slightly raised today because they're not actually in use in this configuration. But this gives you the possibility at any point in the future, if you want to add additional spot colors, well, you've got two print positions in which you can do that. Now, each of the 10 print positions has its own ink supply. They're in these drawers below. And behind that, we have a unique ink circulation system, which means that you can open these drawers and even refill the ink. You can replenish your ink supplies while the press is running. And again, it won't impact the production speed in any way. The press just keeps rolling. Now, another thing worth mentioning is that, as you can see, the DSI is just functioning in this open room here. You do not need to install it in a so-called climber room. So you can just locate it beside your other equipment, and that saves you unnecessary investment if you would have to put it in a climber room. Okay, so that's the print positions, and the second thing I mentioned was the choice in printing widths. So what we have here today, this is the standard 13-inch configuration, so 330 millimeters. That's the maximum width you can print at. And in order to achieve that, the DSI in each print position has 5 print heads side by side. But again, with this idea of modularity in mind, well, you can start with fewer print heads. You can print at narrower widths, and then if you want to expand in the future, you simply add extra print heads. So you can start, for example, at 135 millimeters, and then go up to 200, 265, or the maximum width of 330 millimeters, so 13 inches. And on special request, the DSI is available with an even wider frame, so you can print at widths of up to 530 millimeters. So just a brief recap, you have flexibility and modularity in terms of the configuration, inline, standalone, in terms of the print positions, and also in terms of the printing widths. Now, I'd like to show you some samples, and as you know, Stork Prints is taking part in the Inkjet Trail. And this demonstration, we are printing food labels. So at the moment you see, I believe, the Hey Pesto labels coming off the press there. The girls can hand out some samples, girls, if you would like to do that, of the pesto and also of the honey. You can see for yourself. There are more samples later, so don't worry if you don't get one just now. There's plenty more after the show. And as part of the Inkjet Trail, obviously, we're also printing labels for pharmaceutical applications and also for industrial. But on top of the Inkjet Trail labels, we've also selected a number of labels from other market segments to show you really what the DSI can do. And the first one we'd like to show you is for cosmetics and personal care, because this is an area where the quality of the white on the label is extremely important. And like I said, with the digital white here, you can get screen look opacity with one single application. But what you also see on these labels is extremely fine line work, very crisp and clear text, and photographic quality reproduction. And this brings me back to the inline UV LED pinning stations I mentioned earlier. So the ink is applied here and then fixed before the next ink is applied. And this happens all the way throughout the printing platform. And this is, by fixing it each time, this is what allows you to get this very, very sharp, fine line work, the crisp, clear text. And it also improves the integrity of the colors because there is no bleeding in between the layers of color because it's fixed each time before the new ink is applied. And this, together with the additional spot colors, this is how you can achieve approximately 90% of the Pantone color book. Now, another label that we'd like to show you an example of is in wines and spirits. And incidentally, the DSI won an award this year for the best digitally printed wine label, and this was by Etique and Pack. So French, it's a French award. The French know a thing or two about wine, so it's quite an accolade. But what we'll show you here is actually labels for gin, and they'll be coming off the end of the press in a couple of seconds. And I'd maybe just like to divert your attention to the roll there at the end, because what you'll see is one print job going over into the next. There we go. And that happens seamlessly, so there's no substrate waste whatsoever. There's no impact in the process speed. The press just keeps rolling at the same speed, even though you're changing print jobs. Now, a couple of features I'd just like to mention now. The first one is the digital front end. The digital front end is an important process because this basically gets your print files ready for the DSI. It color manages them. It takes your substrate that you're using into consideration. And the digital front end using the DSI has been developed in partnership with ESCO. It's a state-of-the-art system developed together with ESCO. And another feature I'd like to mention is versioning. So with the DSI, you can print different versions of the same label side by side. You can print different versions of the same label one after the other. You can also do barcode printing, QR code printing, so variable data printing while the press is running. So again, you're changing the parameters while it's running. There's no impact in the process speed. And you can also do a hot swap. We showed you an example of it earlier. You go from one print job to the next, and there's no slowing up of the press, and there's no substrate waste. Now, the labels that you see coming off here at the end now would typically be used in a bit of tougher environments like industrial or automotive or chemical. And these are areas where a label can typically take quite a lot of punishment. So it's subjected to chemicals, and to scratching, and to excessive sunlight. Now, you don't have to have any additional protection for labels printed on the DSI in these kinds of situations. You don't have to have extra varnishing, for example, or lacquering, because the ink is scratch proof and it's chemical proof, and it also has a very high light fastness, which is equivalent to the blue wool scale 7. So basically what you see so far is this real idea of modularity in the DSI. You can start off with a fairly basic configuration. You can expand on that. That's exactly what it's made for. If there are changing market conditions, if your customers demand more, then you can simply grow with them. You can keep pace or even outpace the market by constantly being able to adapt the system. And this has proved very popular already. The DSI is in use in Canada, in the United States, in Norway and Denmark, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Dubai, Australia, and New Zealand. So it's been used all over the world already. This concept is really catching on. Now, so far we've spent our time on this DSI. What I would like to do, I'll just wander over here. Come on, girls. Don't go anywhere without the girls. So here we have the DSI in standalone configuration, so without inline finishing. And there's something here I'd like to draw your attention to, because we have this dual printhead configuration. So what you see is CMYK plus digital white, and each of these colors occupies 2 print positions. So not one as in the one over there, but 2. And this means that you can basically print at twice the speed, because you have twice the capacity to apply the ink to the substrate. And in this case, this DSI is printing at approximately 45 meters a minute. And what you see coming off here, this is like an adhesive sheet that would be used in home decor, so for a wood effect on cupboard doors or skirting boards or something like that. So once again, this also demonstrates the modularity of the DSI. You can double your ink capacity for certain colors in order to get a higher speed, or you can have a greater variety like you saw with the inline finishing version, so you can get a wider color reach. So you have modularity in terms of the colours, in terms of the substrate flexibility, in terms of digital priming. The DSI essentially opens up a whole new world of possibilities in digital printing. So I would say, please have a look at the samples after the show. There's plenty there. You can take them away for yourself. It's also, because it's the last show of the day, we now have happy hour, so we invite you to stay for a drink or a snack. And if you have any questions, we have a whole army of salespeople here who are willing to provide you with answers. So I hope we've managed to give you some insights into what the DSI can do for your business. And all that remains is for me to thank you for coming, and I wish you a pleasant stay at the Labelexpo. Thank you.